I should have known something was wrong the second the string quartet stopped mid-song. Silence rolled across the banquet hall like a cold tide, brushing against the back of my neck. My father, Stuart Bishop, ever the showman, rose from his seat and tapped his champagne glass as if preparing to toast my birthday. For a moment my heart warmed. Maybe, finally, he'll say he's proud of me. Instead, he held up a leather-bound portfolio. A hook of dread snagged deep in my chest. "Nadia," he said, voice smooth but sharp as polished ice. "This is long overdue." I forced a smile. "What is it?" "An invoice." He flipped it open with theatrical precision. $225,000, the cost of raising you. A poor investment, I'm afraid. Gasps rippled through the audience of 100 relatives, phones subtly lifted, recording. Watching, judging. My throat tightened. Is this a joke? His eyes hardened. "No, you failed to elevate the family brand. This," he tapped the paper, "is us cutting our losses." Before I could breathe, my brother Mark stepped forward in his tailored suit, wearing a triumphant smirk I'd seen too many times. "The keys, Nadia," he said, extending a manicured hand. "Dad and Mom want the apartment back. You don't need it now." "That apartment is my home," I whispered. "It was a privilege," he replied, "not a right." My fingers trembled as I dug the key from my purse. "Mark, don't do this." He leaned close. "You did this to yourself. If you weren't so, this never would have happened." The guests watched like it was theater. My humiliation was the show. When I finally placed the key in his palm, something inside me cracked. A thin, painful fracture. The kind that warns of a collapse. Then, as if on cue, my department head stiffened, stepped onto the stage, face pale, eyes darting. My apologies," he stammered. "But based on information provided by your family, you're terminated, effective immediately." Laughter. Whispers. A few gleeful smirks. Stuart raised his glass. A new beginning for all of us, but the hook, the twist, wasn't for them. It was for me, because as the room erupted in a mixture of shock and pity, I felt something shift under my ribs, not despair. Clarity. And clarity, I would soon learn, can burn. Especially when aimed at the people who thought they owned you. What I discovered about my family that night didn't just explain their cruelty, it exposed their crimes. I walked out. Not gracefully, not with a dramatic flourish, just walked. The night air bit at my cheeks, stinging like memory itself. My heels clicked against the gravel path, a metronome of humiliation, yet somehow grounding me in the cold, indifferent reality. By the time I reached the sidewalk, the sharp edge of embarrassment had morphed into something far more dangerous: clarity. My phone buzzed relentlessly, each vibration a reminder of their voices, their judgments, their control. I silenced it, then switched it off. They no longer deserved real estate in my mind. By the time I reached my temporary apartment, the one that now felt like a sanctuary, not a prison, I sank onto the bare couch. The stillness welcomed me like the first honest thing I'd been given all night. I replayed it all. The invoice. $225,000 for a life I had lived with integrity. The crowd of relatives staring, silently judging. Mark's smug face. Stephen trembling as he read aloud my termination in front of everyone. It hurt. God, it hurt. And then something shifted. It had never been about love. Not really. It had always been about leverage. My parents didn't raise children. They invested in assets. Assets expected to pay them back in loyalty, obedience, public image. And me? I was the failed stock. Mark, their golden bull market. That invoice wasn't a bill. It was a confession. For the first time in my life, I asked myself, what happens when the asset they undervalued discovers her real market worth? I wiped the tears from my cheeks and opened my laptop. Not a job board, not emails, a terminal window. If they wanted to ruin my life as a cybersecurity analyst, they had forgotten one crucial detail. Cybersecurity analysts don't crumble. We investigate. And the investigation was about to begin, one that would turn the tables in ways they never imagined. I stared at the terminal for a long moment, watching the blinking cursor, and realized the first battlefield wasn't my family. It was my career, my livelihood, My identity. I found the direct line for Regional Director Helena Mason, the woman who had once trusted me with a near-catastrophic ransomware breach that could have frozen the entire West Coast network. I dialed. Second ring, third. Nadia? Her voice, sharp and measured, cut through my tension. Is this an emergency? Only for company ethics, I said, keeping my voice steady, almost clinical. Stephen terminated me. At a private party hosted by my parents. No HR, no performance review, just gossip masquerading as authority. A long, dangerous silence. He did what? Her disbelief was palpable. I laid out the facts, calm and precise, like presenting an audit report. He publicly fired me in front of guests. No exit interview. No protocol. Just a performance for my parents' amusement. And yes, they consider me a liability. Another pause. Then give me 5 minutes. I barely breathed. 5 minutes. The clock ticked louder than the party's laughter in my memory. 4 minutes, 58 seconds later. Ding. Access restored. Another ding. Stephen placed on unpaid leave, pending a formal investigation. And another ding. A 10% salary increase. I almost laughed. The very people who tried to strip me of everything had inadvertently strengthened me. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The hook had revealed itself. They had thought they buried me, but in reality, they had planted a seed. I whispered to the empty room, they wanted to ruin me. They didn't realize I'd been preparing all along. Then my fingers hovered over the keyboard. One window blinking. The family finances. One battlefield left. They had tried to break me. Now I had the power to expose them, and nothing would ever be the same. The screen loaded line by line, numbers cascading like confessions. My heartbeat synchronized with the blinking cursor, each tick sharper than the last. And then I saw it. The trust fund. My trust fund. Left by my late grandfather to mature when I turned 21. Empty, drained years ago. My breath hitched, my fingers froze above the keyboard. Impossible, I whispered to the silent apartment. This can't be real. But it was. I traced the purchase of the set and Mark had mocked me for losing. Every dollar came from the same drained account. My father's name Stuart on the title was a lie. A performance of generosity masking theft. Anger burned. Betrayal carved deeper. But clarity followed. I moved to the family investment records. Contributions from my uncles and aunts. $5,000 a month, 5 years, all meant to grow in trust. Where had it gone? Not to a tech fund, not to savings, to MB Lifestyle Holdings LLC. Mark's initials, Mark's greed. Luxury trips, influencer retreats, sports cars, designer wardrobes, all funded by relatives who believed they were securing their future. And the signatures? My father Stuart's and Mark's. Every transaction, every withdrawal, meticulously documented. I leaned back, stunned. Their plan had been meticulous. Their betrayal, total. I had uncovered the crime scene of their lives, and with these files, I held the power to dismantle everything they had ever built. And in that moment, a strange calm settled. My parents had thought they controlled me. They didn't know I was just beginning. I backed up the files to an encrypted drive, naming it simply, family_audit_final.pif. No commentary. No accusations, just facts, raw and undeniable. I sent it to every relative, to the authorities, to my father, to Mark. Then I powered down my phone. Narcissists feed on reaction, I gave them none. 24 hours later, the storm arrived. A furious pounding on my door. Nadia, retract the email. We did it for the legacy. Stuart's voice cracked with desperation. You gave me a bill, I replied calmly through the chain lock. Call it what it was. Mark's shouting echoed from the hallway. This isn't over. You'll regret this. I slid a printout through the crack. Federal sentencing guidelines for wire fraud. This, I whispered, is the cost of lying. Within days, their empire crumbled. Estates seized. Assets frozen. Sponsorships revoked. Their carefully constructed world collapsed under the weight of their own deception. I didn't watch. I didn't celebrate. I simply let go. Sitting at my desk as sunlight poured through the window, I right-clicked the folder containing every file I had gathered. Delete. For 28 years, I carried a debt that wasn't mine. Now the account was closed. Freedom is heavy, quiet, and absolute, but as I leaned back in my chair, I felt it, something new, something waiting just beyond the horizon. And I was ready.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.